Dry chicken. Everybody's had dried chicken before. You know, you might be over at the in-laws' house, or you might be grilling at your own house, and you get it too dry. What do? You eat it, and you tell the chef, that's good chicken. But in reality, it is awful. And you're just holding that in to yourself. What I'm going to do today is give you a recipe that will basically assure that you don't end up with dry chicken. What I've got before us here, I'm going to explain a couple of things first. I want to talk about my ingredients first here, and then we'll get into the process. For my chicken recipe, you're going to need McCormick's Italian seasoning, fresh cracked pepper, Italian dressing. You can either use regular Italian or Robusto Italian. I've got both. And then for the grill later on, we're going to need our olive oil. But first we'll start with the chicken itself. In this recipe, we're going to use 4 pieces of chicken, and they are chicken breasts. First, you'll want to trim all the fat off of the chicken, at least as much as you can without tearing up the chicken itself. I've already pre-done 3, and we'll show you what one's supposed to look like. What you have here is a fully done piece of chicken, completely clear of fat. I've got one to show, for example, that still has some fat left on it. And what we're going to do first is take a clean, sterile knife, and we're going to trim off any bad pieces of the chicken. Only the fat though. We don't want to tear off any of the chicken itself. I've got a black bowl here that serves as the discard for that fat. And once we're done with this, tearing off the fat on this chicken, make sure you wipe your utensils, by the way, once you're done with them. They will go in the washer. You don't want to reuse them. I've got a fork here, and the key, one of the critical keys to this recipe with this chicken, is to pierce the chicken. Now for time constraints, I'm only going to do it a couple of times, but in reality for this recipe, you're going to pierce the chicken about 50 to 75 times on each side. That way you have good aeration holes for the seasoning to penetrate down the line. Okay, we're done with that step. And before you place any of this chicken into the bowl, here I'm going to wipe my hands. Make sure, again, clean rag before you handle any of your other items, because you don't want to cross-contaminate and possibly end up with bacteria on your seasonings. First, we'll take the Italian dressing. You're going to put a base layer into the bottom of the bowl, just like that. Now your chicken breasts. You're going to lay 2 in the bottom. Remember, I've got 3 here already pierced. Make sure they go in side by side and don't overlap. Okay? And this is where your Italian seasoning comes in. Make sure when you're getting your seasoning that you grab the right thing. I made a horrible mistake one time, and I grabbed freeze-dried chives and poured it all over the chicken. That just sets you up for disaster up front. Going to take the seasoning, season both liberally, and then before we add our next chicken, again, Italian dressing over both. And from here, fresh cracked pepper on both. Okay? And then we just add the rest of our chicken here. Again, you've already pierced it at this point. They all need to be done. You lay them in on top, and you just repeat the process. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more Italian dressing to the top on both. And if you run out, it's okay to use, like here I've got the Robusto I'm going to use now. If you run out of one, that's okay. If you've got another Italian dressing, just add it to it. It's not going to hurt it. Just make sure it's not a Caesar. Now once those are in there, all you're going to do at this point is you're going to get your lid. I've got the lid off camera here. And you're going to close it. You're going to put it in the fridge. One of the critical points of this also, to guarantee that you don't dry this chicken out, is to marinate it for 36 hours. You want to keep this in the fridge for that time, because this Italian dressing will soak into the meat, and the enzymes in the dressing will start to break down the meat just a little bit, tenderize it, and make it a little bit softer. You'll notice that after 36 hours when you pull these out, they'll have kind of a white texture, almost like they've been cooked, but that's perfect. You know then that that's what you're looking for to use on the grill. Now once you're done with all of your items, of course you're going to discard everything. And you want to make sure that you take your clean rag again and you're going to wipe your surface off. Remember, don't reuse your fork or your knife for this. So here we are 36 hours later. From this point you want to grill. So what are you going to use? Well, I choose to use Kingsford Match Light because it's easiest to use. Part of the reason I like to use this too is because with regular coals and lighter fluid, sometimes if you use too much lighter fluid, you'll get a little bit of that taste into the meat when you cook it. You want to spread out about half a bag, 4 pounds or so of charcoal, light it, wait about 15 to 20 minutes for it to turn ashy gray. And from there, another big key to this, so your chicken doesn't stick on the grill, that's where our olive oil comes into play. The olive oil you're going to take with a brush, and you're going to liberally brush this across the grate on the grill. It's okay, it's going to flare up just a little bit with it dripping onto the coals, but that's okay. This is going to ensure that the meat does not stick to the grill. After you've done that, you're going to take the meat out, you're going to place it on the grill, and you're going to cook it for about 3 minutes on each side, but we're not done. After you've put the meat on the grill, the other critical component of this, at least for my chicken, is hickory chips, like we've got here. Now there's a couple ways you can do the hickory chips. For me, what I like to do is I'll just take them by the handful, just like this. I have a side opening grill. I'll open the compartment and I'll throw these hickory chips right into the fire on top. That way they burn and they smoke. And the key to doing this is about every 3 to 5 minutes I'll go out there and use a handful of hickory chips. So when all's said and done, this 1 pound bag, 2 pound bag of hickory chips, I'll use about half a bag just to grill 4 to 6 pieces of chicken. But you want to continue to do this throughout the whole process, that way that smoke flavor is continuously penetrating the meat. And after you've placed that on there, you want to cook the chicken for about 5 to 7 minutes on each side, constantly turning it and checking it. You don't want to burn it on each side, so if you turn it often, it'll guarantee that you don't burn this chicken. After about 15 to 16 minutes, it is critical also to check the chicken, cut it, and make sure that there is no pink center. Again, to keep salmonella poisoning down and keep the bacteria from growing, make sure that you've cooked it thoroughly. And when you bring it in and cut it for the final time, you should notice, if you've done it right, you should notice juices flowing out of the chicken and onto the plate, much like you'd see in a medium rare steak. And if you have any questions on this recipe, feel free to contact me at pwilkerson74@yahoo.com.